Okay, hello everybody and welcome to Growth Uncut. Today we are continuing our series around Justice 2.0, which is all about how we can upgrade the justice system globally. And I am welcoming greatly our guest today, Arman, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the topic of employment and how we might upgrade the justice system in order to really encourage people to get back into work and to unlock the potential and grow as individuals. So really hope you enjoyed the session. And without further ado, I would love to ask you to introduce yourself, Arman. So over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me here. And my name is Arman, and I live in Norway. And I don't think you would invited me to the podcast 25 years ago, Sarah. Not even you. So I am 52 at the moment. I have 3 kids, and I work as a full-time public speaker and has a social worker education in the bottom. But I have, of course, lived experience as my most valuable asset, I would say.
Okay, and how is that an asset for you? What does that mean to you?
It means everything to me because I use that in my job. I use that to I see myself as a change maker for society. I have 3 really big cornerstones that I work for, which is one is social sustainability. I try to create more openness in society, and so people can speak more open about what they are struggling with. So in a way, try to raise the temperature in the room, so it's easy for people to ask for help. And I also do it in some kind of a rebellion way, I would say, because I have a street smart background. I have a different approach when I try to teach about the things I have learned. Yeah.
Wonderful. And if you were to wave that magic wand and have some upgrades in the justice system, either in Norway or more broadly, what would those upgrades, what would you love to see in terms of a better justice system for people?
Well, I don't know much about the system abroad, of course, but I have been into jail for myself for quite a few times. It's been a while now, but I think we need to start treat punishment a bit different, I would say, because it shouldn't be only about punishment. It should be about growth, healing, and opportunity. How we can actually help this person get back on track again. And when a person with a criminal record, he has experiences that can be used. And I work now not with people in prisons, but I work with persons with convictions after they're getting out of prison, but with hardship to get a job. So I'm working with this the phase where I don't get a job because I have a background. That's the thing I work with. So I'm trying to change all of that, but it has to change also, of course, in the prisons, but also in the workforce, how employers see people with convictions, and how they shouldn't. I would say I get a sense that people can hire them because of it has to look good on their resume, on their how to say it,
resume, on their CV,
on the companies and on the company's CV.
Yeah.
So it's all about a bit of a charity, I would say, but if you I try to teach them that if you can actually see that person with those experiences can be valuable for your business, then we have to change a little bit, because you don't hire them because of charity, you hire them because it's profitable. So yeah.
So there's something there from what you're saying around mindset, the mindset of employers, but there's also something around intention there, that we're not maybe employing people just to tick that box of we're being inclusive or doing it kind of tokenistically. it sounds like that genuine desire to employ people with convictions, knowing that they can create greater profit, they can add value to their organization.
Yeah. And I don't know how it's like in the UK, but in Norway we have a very high employment rate. So we don't have much unemployment now, and we will need every person in the future because we are growing elder, you and me, and we need people growing up taking care of us. So we need also people with gaps in their CV. So we need to think differently. Otherwise, some society might collapse because we don't have enough people. So it's never been a better time, especially in Norway, to get employers to have interest for that, maybe more than they would before. So, but it's not easy for people with convictions to be totally open, Sarah. I totally get that, because I think that the society today is more polarized, and we are more judging each other, and we are more fear-based instead of getting to know each other. Instead of our differences, we are a bit afraid, and it's not easy to raise their hand and say, well, I have convictions. So it's a responsibility for the whole society to create a more warm approach. So it's easy for people with convictions to say, what, I have done something before, I am finished with that, I have made up for me, but the life I have lived has made me some experiences, and I think those experiences might be valuable for you as an employer and for the society.
And if that happened, so if that upgrade did take place and the magic wand kind of worked, what impact do you feel that would make on our society, on our workforce? What, if we had that openness, if employers spent that time seeing people, like you say, what would be the impact of that, do you think?
Well, it has a huge impact, of course. First, for the individual that can actually get out of debt, get out of the outskirt, if so to say, and to get the place where they belong in the society, where they can thrive and feel that they are valuable. Because I think that's the most dangerous thing, because if those people don't feel valuable, they're not a part of society. So why should they care? We only care about things we love and feel as a part of. So that's a very important thing, and people will get income of that, of course, which is also tax income for the society, and we reduce health costs, and we reduce lots of numbers, but most of all how people can feel, the person themselves, but also the people around them, in the families and the networks around them. So, and of course, on the business side of it, I think businesses can get employees with, I just speak on my behalf now, but I have spoken to a lot of others with similar backgrounds. They are very loyal. They are very grateful. And when people have met rock bottom, they don't want to get back there. So they will do everything they can to stay on top of things. And I've spoken to a lot of employers lately, and I don't want to put groups up against each other, but they say that people growing up today, 20s, 25 years old people, they're not very loyal. They change work every second year, and they do what they like. But people with convictions, they are loyal. And I know that because I stayed in the same organization. If it's okay with you, I can just go back a little back into my story.
Sure.
Because, I don't have any kind of anything to blame. I became a criminal because I was out. I didn't have any friends when I was 13, 14 years old, and I started stealing a bit money from my grandfather. And with those money, I get accepted with the right clothes. So money for me was a kind of a feeling of acceptance and belonging. And I never get caught for those stealings from my grandfather. So yeah, and one thing led to another, and it's a long story there, but I ended up first and foremost as a criminal, not as a drug addict, but I was also a lot of I sold drugs, of course, in the criminal life. So I used drugs as well. So I was when I was 30 years old, I was at the lowest point possible. And I changed my life because of 3 really important meetings I had with actually a policeman during an arrest. This is quite a strong story for me. So, and during an arrest, he, instead of putting handcuffs on me, he was putting his arm around me, and he said, and you have to understand, it was it was like a crime scene there. So it's really, really, the other policemen try to do the right policeman thing, taking the guns away and everything. But he was sitting around me and asked, is there anything I can do to help you? Just tell me what it is, and I can see what I can do. And those words actually made me feel that I'm not alone anymore. And I started to cry at that moment. And this policeman, I didn't tell he cried, but anyway, he still held his arm around me. And those 10 minutes, he arrested me for sure. But those 10 minutes were very crucial for me, because then I didn't change my life at the time, but I actually, 6 months later, I was also in a prison. And then I met a prison guard, and she has exceptional skill sets in meeting people in crisis. And she actually took me outside the walls of the prison without asking anyone, because inside the prison, I didn't want to talk about my career shift. So she saw that I was more interested in my reputation inside prison. So she walked with me in the streets of my hometown, and I was a famous criminal at the time, I'm afraid. And she said to me that we have seen that you like to help other people because you have written applications for all other inmates in this prison. And we know it's you because you have some spelling mistakes in every application, also in your own application.
Beautiful.
And so I didn't admit anything at the moment. Of course, I was a criminal at the time. But she said that, so maybe you should be considering being a social worker. And in the beginning, I was really mad at her, because social worker, what? I'm completely mad. But after giving that some thoughts, I said to this prison guard that, well, you're right. I like to help. And if you help me now, I will try to start quitting everything. And she did. And I, after that, I had 1 year in the prison and 3 years as a social worker, education. And then, Sarah, I had to work as a social worker, and that was not easy, because then my CV comes into place, because I didn't have any CV at all, not any at all. So the job interview process there were quite unique, and that was an old lady, Kari. She's never met a criminal in her life. So my job application were really special, because I had to take a Google print, because I was a famous criminal. I was involved in the murder cases. I didn't do anything with, I just delivered guns for these murder cases. But she was a bit afraid, and the rest of her colleagues were really afraid, They actually thought that I was going to be shot at work.
Wow.
But she said, there's something interesting with this guy, because I was completely honest. I didn't have any choice at the moment. I didn't do it by purpose, but because I didn't have any choice, because guru. And at the job interview, the reason I got the job, I think, were that I told Kari, and the job position was as a financial advisor for the public government, and that was quite extraordinary as well, because I had approximately 200,000 pounds in debt myself. So I said to her, I will use my background as a person with financial problems to gain trust for those people that I will meet. I will tell them about that. And I will also tell them that I have managed to get out of the debt problems. And that was one of the reasons I got the job, because of my skill sets as a failure, if you should put it like that.
Yeah. And what's really, I mean, that when you talk, it just fills me with loads of memories of my time in Norway. And I think my biggest lesson, which is what I kind of hear from your stories, is this: people constantly saying to me, you have to see people. That's what you've got to do. You've got to see people. And I kind of didn't really understand it at first. And having come from a probation background, all I saw was offender, criminal, risk, all the things that, you know, we get trained to see, I guess. But there's just something wonderful that police officer saw your needs. Yeah, he saw you as a human, and then they saw your good, and they saw your strength, and they saw something different in you. And it's just that seeing of good, isn't it, that can just plant these wonderful seeds that don't maybe happen overnight, you know, they fertilize and they grow quietly maybe, and they bring something really special. But there's also something you talk about there about kind of the transferring of skills. And, you know, from your experience of working with employment, and this really resonated when we were planning this podcast, the skills that people have through criminal activity, how do you see that they can be transferred into legitimate ways within employment? What would you see there?
Yeah, it's we spoke a little bit about it already, and what Kari did in my job interview was actually, and you have to keep in mind, she was really brave, because she has never met a criminal. And I was producing drugs myself, you know, and I was having a distribution network. And what she actually asked me about, she had a conversation with me, and she was not judging me. She was curious. That made me feel a bit more confident. So I can, she's not judging me. So maybe she's really interested in what I have done and what we can maybe do together. And she said, well, when you was selling drugs, did you have a budget for that? And yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, and I didn't have an Excel, but I just have a notebook. But anyway, she thought, and well, as a financial advisor, you need to put up a budget for the people you help. So you know numbers and budgeting, she said. Yes, I do. And then she checked the box. Okay, that's good. Because she needed some kind of ammunition to say, how to say it, into the rest of the leader group. So checked. And then she continued. And when you worked as a muscleman, because I was collecting money from people that owed money to others, and I never were violent at all. I just used my mouth talking, and I was pretty good in talking. So, and when she heard that, she said, well, so you were good in negotiations then? Yes, I am. Yeah, when you say it like this, I think I am. Well, you know, as a job, as a financial advisor, you should also negotiate with people that have money with our clients. So you need to be good in negotiations as well. So check the box. And the third thing I remember, which really stand out, and I remember I thought, what? She really asked me that. So the question was, when you worked as a muscleman, it's really important I guess, also in the criminal environment, to keep your mouth shut. What happened if you talked about your business to people outside your business? Oh, well, that's not very good. It could be really dangerous for you. And then she was thinking, yeah, in the public government, we have a very strong confidentiality here. So we need people that can keep their mouth shut.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so she carried on and she carried on. So what I think, these transferable skills, we all have them, criminal background or not. And we don't have only what's on the formal CV and job experience, but we have all experiences from life, and the broader experience I'm really curious about. So when I meet people that try to get out into the workforce, I can help them with, okay, what have you done? And I transfer them into, let's say, more friendly skill sets in the normal workforce. So it's a lot of things there. We don't, it's underutilized, that so much underutilized skill sets that are out there.
And I think, reflecting again back on your story, the original goal, the core goal was acceptance, right? And I kind of think you have a set of skills to achieve acceptance, and hopefully with an employment and an employer like you've just described, they're accepting you, aren't they? You're achieving the same core goal that you wanted to achieve, like we all do. We all want acceptance, and you're using those skills. You're using those skills in a different way. And I just think that's really poignant. I think that's really, hopefully, really inspiring for those that are looking for work and listening to this, or employers around. If an employer goes in there bravely and goes in there curiously, new things can happen and new learning can evolve from that, can't it? And I think that's really beautiful. I mean, let's think a little bit then about challenges. So looking at your experiences working with people who are trying to get into work, what would you say are the kind of core challenges that people face?
Well, the main problem is, of course, that there isn't enough warmth in society. So we are afraid to admit that we have made mistakes in life. So that's the core thing. But I also think that the interview situation is terrible. And also because the interview is all about who is the best to pressure the other person to admit mistakes. I got you. You're not totally honest here. So the interview process is hard, but also getting into the interview. Because people carry shame and they fear judgment, and a criminal record or financial mess can become a label and not just a chapter. So I try to help people to find language for the shame so they can move forward. So working on both sides is important. And one business has to make this recruitment policy like a strategic decision, because you don't find Kari everywhere.
No.
Kari is really rare, and now she's out of business as well because she's pensioner now. But you need to have it on the top. You need to have that as a decision. As a company, we want to have, let's say, 10% of every new employment should come from a different recruitment process. And based on that, then everyone knows, okay, what should we do to get people on board 10% with a different background? And then you can communicate out in the market. We are looking for people with different backgrounds. We think that's important to build, let's say, the bank of the future, or something really cool, because you need to write to people, and those kind of job boards ads, they are not very attractive for those people. You need to work with the language, and I also help businesses with that. And when it comes to the job interview, then it's more like you need to be more curious instead of finding references and tell me about your weaknesses and strengths. It's just bullshit, to be honest. So I have 3 questions that I always ask my employers to ask, and that is, what are you proud of in your journey? What did you learn the hard way? And how can what you have learned make us be better as a company?
Yeah.
And what would make you feel trusted here? That's also very important, because we need to understand that many might have lack of trust both ways.
That's it. And if you were to advise the person who's walking into that interview, I mean, the beauty is if you've got an advert that very much outlines the things you've just talked about, that's going to encourage someone to be brave enough to apply, right? And feel that they can walk into that interview and hopefully feel that they're going to be judged on the quality of their character rather than maybe their biggest mistake. But are there any tips that you would give those that go into those interviews, whether that's around talking about their convictions, whether that's around talking about their challenges? What have you learned along the way?
Well, at least you need to take control over your story, because otherwise there is always be some kind of a mistrust there, because you can't lie. Or at least it will feel much better if you understood that you can shape your story. And I think that if you do it the right way, the employer will be much more open to you. I know there will be exceptions here. Not everyone will accept that. And I get that. Well, then it's not right. Then you have to do another one. But you need to find those employers that and if you can actually say that, do you want to be a part of a success story? Because everyone wants to feel a part of a success story. Then you can hire me, because I will do everything I can to make you feel proud of me, and I will do everything you say, and so, and I can, but it's not easy. So it's all about creating this temperature in the room again where we can speak freely, and it's a responsibility that goes both ways.
I hear you. Wonderful. What are your hopes then, in terms of you, in terms of the work that you're doing, in terms of how you would love to see that progress, like your own, I guess, professional hopes? What would you love to see?
Yeah, my vision is that that we have such a warm society that we can speak more freely about things that are difficult for us, and if we can make that will also make it easier to talk about this from both sides. And I hope that we can find brave leaders that actually wants to grow themselves and find this kind of a different approach to be more brave and to get more people with different experiences on board, and see that, well, this was profitable, but it was also damn good for my so you have both ways here. You're more profitable, but also I'm doing good for others, because everyone loves to help, I think, and everyone wants to see that their contribution made a difference. And and also that we can see, I started with that, believing growth instead of just guilt, hire from experience, not just education. So I hope I don't, I am not only exception here, and Kari, what she did 20 years ago, but I hope I can meet several Karis in the future that has, feel proud of themselves, to get people on board with different experiences.
A culture of Karis,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
maybe that's it. That's what we
Yeah.
want to achieve, a culture of Karis. And if people are listening to this and they want to reach out, they want to talk to you, they want some advice as an employer, how might they get hold of you?
Well, I am in LinkedIn,
Mm.
so it's nice to reach out there. And I am also in Facebook and Instagram with my name, so it's only to look me up there, and I respond to every message I get.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been so lovely to talk to you. And, we've been working a lot within this space at the moment just to try and give people guidance through our lived experience standards to try and encourage people to be braver. And it's so heartwarming to hear you talk a lot about your experiences and how it kind of aligns to those standards that were created by people with lived experience. So I wish you all the best. And it's been a real privilege to talk with you. And I really hope that those who have listened, have got as much as I have out of the conversation. So, if you want to hear more about what we're doing in terms of Justice 2.0, folks, we're going to have lots more podcasts, online events, looking at different parts of the system and how we can upgrade the justice system collectively, globally, and how we can co-own it and really promote that responsibility across the system rather than just laying it at the feet of those who have offended. So thank you so much, Arman. Appreciate you greatly.
Thanks for bringing me in.